Welcome to the MBVS Show. I'm your host, Mark Hayford, coming at you like hot butter for your popcorn, baby. This is mine, body, voice, soul. And we are here in the name of mental wellness. And I didn't come alone, fam. I brought some friends. So please put your hands together for the man with the plan from the Big Apple. He's a five-time author, trauma and bereavement specialist with 30 years in the game. Looks like Fry, but it's Dr. Norman Freed.
Woo! No, sorry, I'm back. Thank you.
He's back. He's in it. It's like a bar fight going on, but it doesn't matter because now we go all the way down to the lady with cool breeze and palm trees. What does she not do? She's an actor, producer, podcaster, children's author. She's my friend. It's Barbara Heller.
What's up?
Hey, all the way from across the pond. Top of the morning to him and to you. We got a special treat. We got certified mental wellness practitioner and mindset coach, radio host, special guest, the Doug Gordon. And joining us for the first time, gracing the MBVS program, all the way from Maryland, or when she's there, it's happier. So it's Maryland, certified trauma therapist, national speaker of anxiety and stress management. Ladies and gentlemen, Liz Childs. Squad, thank you, everybody, for doing this. We nonstop, can't stop, won't stop, because we're in a fight. We're in a battle against mental wellness. There's depression, there's anxiety, there's frustration, there's isolation, there's on and negative. And every week we've been coming together, we've been making things happen, and we're trying to answer questions from everyone out there that has something that they're dealing with. And even if it's not your direct question, maybe it's going to help you. So if you are the viewer or the listener, we want to welcome you, and we want to encourage you to reach out to us with any issues, problems, questions that you may have that you would like us to address on this program. Now, without further jibber jabber jive turkey talk, why don't we get into the first question? And the first question is porn. This is a hot topic, ladies and gentlemen. I have been dealing with a pornography addiction to the degree that it has wiped away my marriage. It is affecting my personal life. I don't know what to do about it. Boom. Straight, simple. We could do a 2-day seminar on this one. Pornography. I mean, it is everywhere. I've been doing a lot of work in schools. I talk to young men, high school boys that are like, look, and girls, everybody. I mean, it's just everywhere. It's nonstop. It's, you know, we were talking before we went live here about like back in the day, you know, it's a magazine. Well, now it's not a magazine. Now it's scroll. Like there's no ending. There's no end credits. It could be forever. So, I mean, from an emotional standpoint, a spiritual standpoint, you know, the actual neuroscience standpoint, I'm dying to go into this and see what you all think about it. So, pornography, talk about it.
Okay, I guess I'll start. I noticed that when my students come to me about this very issue, they're usually dealing with something that's very traumatizing in their life, and they're looking for a way to feel good and to soothe themselves. And I always ask them, you know, what if it was violence? What if it was someone being, God forbid, you know, decapitated? Would you want to watch that over and over again? And actually, unfortunately, someone once responded with a yes, because they were so going down the road of pornography that they went to sadomasochistic type of stuff. And I've actually never seen porn. So, I mean, I've seen like a scene here and there, like in a movie or whatever. But I'm the kind of person where if I have a very sensitive neshama soul, so I will always like shut stuff off when I'm like, oh God, I can't watch that. You know, even if it's like on an Instagram, like anything about animals being mistreated, it's hard for me. And so I always try to, you know, say to people, wouldn't you guard your eyes against something that was vicious or something that was about mutilation or harmful? And usually people will say, absolutely. So number one, it's taking care of the soul through the eyes, and you are what you eat, you are what you read, you are what you drink, you are what you hear. And, you know, it's the same reason why I won't watch like TMZ, and I encourage people to stop reading gossip and spreading it, even if it's just like, oh, look at what happened to Ariana Grande or a cringe moment, like stop spreading that, stop reposting. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I would say is if you want to stop the cycle of violence, like a lot of kids that I know will say that sort of thing because they came from a place where someone was abusive in their home, then you absolutely have a responsibility to find new ways of dealing with it. And I know my time's almost up, but I want to say there are so many wonderful resources to soothe yourself in a healthy way. And porn should definitely not be on the docket. And I hope that we're getting to a place where it's so rampant and we've swung all the way in one direction that people will start putting limitations on themselves and really educating about this so that we nip it in the bud.
Well said.
Well said, Barbara. Just to add my perspective, there's a great comedian, if anybody knows him, called Billy Connolly. And Billy Connolly is probably one of the most famous comedians ever up until now at this time. And he said that women need to feel loved to have sex, and men need to have sex to feel loved. So we're screwed, really. But the real thing, really, for all you men out there that might be thinking, well, I look at porn because I enjoy it. Actually, you know what? Really, if you want to get a lovely woman, if you want to have a good relationship, you need to connect with her through here and through here, not through down there. And that's the way you'll have a very fulfilling sexual relationship with a beautiful woman. It's not looking at porn because it gives you completely the wrong impression of where you're meant to go in a relationship and a sexual interaction with the person as well. Come from love, come from a place of heart, get out of that head, get out of that ego, and you will really have a fulfilling, loving relationship.
Doug, brilliant, beautiful. And I want to add to that, let's remember that there's an operative word here, which is addiction. We're not here saying that porn is bad or porn is good, but we are recommending that addictions are not. So when this person says to us, well, I have a porn addiction, we recognize that it's correlated with a failed marriage, perhaps difficulties in his relationships, and as you said so beautifully, Doug, with misinformation about what the actual experience of sex with another person can be like. Let's focus on the fact that the addiction piece needs to be honored, that we have to help this person not go to the extreme. And there are things that go on in our own brainstem that make the addiction even more powerful. When people look at porn, there are endogenous opioids that are being generated in the brainstem, which make you energized and feel good. And when you stop looking at the porn, all of a sudden your brain cells say, I miss that opioid. I crave it. And now you become addicted on a cellular level. What's so difficult about a porn addiction, as opposed to other addictions, is that these days it is so easy and accessible to find porn. It's not necessarily as easy to get drugs or alcohol for those who have those addictions. But porn is very, very available through the internet, and you can find yourself, as yes, you said, Mark, getting deeper and deeper into it. And kudos to you, Barb, because you're reminding us that the soul really needs to be protected, and we really can't make sure of what it is that our eyes are seeing, but if we can protect our eyes from things that overstimulate us, we will find ourselves living better lives. So I think all of that applies to the porn addiction problem.
And I would actually completely agree with all of those perspectives. And so Barbara had hit on one thing about like people want to feel good. And Doug had actually highlighted something that clinical therapists refer to as the heterosexual double bind, is that women have sex to when they're connected, and men have sex to get connected. And so it's like two ships passing in the night. And that's based in like, this toxic masculine culture. And then it's like, so, but when men are not feeling loved, and Dr. Fried had actually talked about addiction. And so addiction is always, what is at the basis of it is a lack of connection. And usually, a lot of times, it's for the lack of connection to one's self. And it really encompasses a lot of shame. So an addiction is based in we're wanting to feel good. And like where we get to really cross like that line is like, we do things because they feel good. Of course, sex feels good. Masturbation feels good. Like drinking alcohol, doing all of those things. When we cross over into it becoming addiction is when we do that because we need to feel good. And we're utilizing something externally outside of ourselves to distract ourselves because we're not giving to ourselves what was never taught to us, what was never given to us. So when we lack that form of connection, it's because we lack a self-awareness, we're lacking healing, and then we have a tendency to go, oh, well, I'm going to use this to make me feel good. And what we've seen in the research has been that it's like for every single person that let's say the antagonist of the porn uses in that video, they get a dopamine hit. So, and that's where you were talking about the opioid, like, you know, the opiates are like in the brain, it's like that feeling good. And it's like, but what we've seen is that it doesn't stop there. So for every single person that person engages, the more the addiction plays in itself. And then now, but what Barbara had talked about is it's raising to a higher level. It starts to become more violent to get the next dopamine hit, to feel better. This is a huge systemic problem. And this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that objectifies people and including children. And it's like, there gets to be more activism, there gets to be more awareness around this. And then it's like, instead of treating people with shame and saying like, you have to stop, it's like we get to actually look at and treat the underlying cause, which is going to be a lack of connection, self-awareness, and love.
Well, you all brought up some very interesting points here. So let me just kind of throw this in here, whether we're talking alcohol, whether we're talking drugs, whether we're talking like just your phone, whatever it is. Like if you eat a French fry, you're not going to die. Okay. It's not the healthiest thing. Go eat the apple. But if you eat the French fry, it's fine. If you eat the French fry, whole box of French fries every single day, you're going to have diabetes. You're going to get a heart attack. You're going to do it. So, you know, Dr. Norman, I think you said, you know, we're not saying it's not good. We're not saying it's not bad. We're just saying, you know, this can create this addiction. So what is too much? How does it, where's the cutoff line? Like, I'm not saying, you know, tamper with it at all or not, but where does it like bleed into where it's out of control for so many people?
It's a wonderful question, Mark. And the answer is found in the question that this man asked us, which is, he said he is now getting divorced as a result of the porn addiction, which means, and maybe he isn't, but that's his view of the experience, which means that it becomes an addiction when it's getting in the way of, sorry, I'm getting a call. It becomes that's so unexpected. It becomes an addiction when it gets in the way of healthy functioning. And healthy functioning would be having a relationship with a real person, not an avatar on the screen that will never be met in real life, and having relationships with people with whom you can have a soul-to-soul connection, as Barb will always say, versus just having a fantasy-to-fantasy connection. That's when addiction that's when the action becomes an addiction, and that's always a bad thing.
Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. I want to jump in here really quickly because I have to say this. I'm so moved to say this after Norman, that I work with high school students who are right now, and I don't want to get political, they're really raging. And these are middle school and high school students, I should say, who are like, I don't know who I want to sleep with. I don't know how I identify. And they're being put under massive pressures today because of the economic and you know, the industry is like, we're trying so hard, even in the mental wellness space, to get people to know and to feel good about their sexual choices. And it's like, I want to say like that old country song, and no one probably will ever quote this on this stage again, but you know, let them be little. Like, our kids today have so much trauma from what we just went through. They are being pushed to get to the best schools. There's forget socioeconomic realities. Like, everyone feels like they have to get into college. And then when they get there, they feel so lost and they don't have any friends anymore because they're in kindergarten, they're worried about where they're going to go to college. And you can't blame them for going to these lengths of addiction through all kinds of opioids. And so I just want to say that before we get to the place of when is it too far, why don't we start from the beginning and get to the soul level at 5? And instead of talking about who do I externally want to be with physically, what are some good habits that I can do right now to soothe myself healthy, and also to volunteer my time and to do things like go outside and play and, you know, have vitamin D. And, you know, it's just, there's so much wrong with what's going on right now. I see parents at the parks on their phones instead of reading books to kids or spending time with them on the swings. Everyone's on a phone. And, you know, there's just, we can talk about these for ages. But.
Yeah. I mean, this whole topic itself, this could be an entire day training, a seminar, a whole, you know, look, we got to bounce to the next question here, but all I'm going to say is I don't know if we've solved anything here, but I hope that whoever's watching or listening got some information and some takeaways from this. And I wish it was, but I feel like this is not the end of this conversation.
Well, it isn't. But I'll tell you, the way to solve any problem is to understand it first, to stand underneath it and let the information rain down. And that's what we're doing, helping people understand.
That's right.
Just one
The first
last-
step to solving a problem is first recognizing that there is one.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And one last thing I'll just say is, being a spiritual guy and being an energy healer as well, I always find that people who do look at that kind of thing, or even just going to a bar looking at another woman when you're married, there's an energy that your partner can feel. And that's why it's so important that your direction of your love, your energy is towards one person rather than somebody else, because she will feel that. And that's why, I think porn is a terrible thing, really. Because
Or he, right? Or he nowadays.
Yeah, or he, yeah. But you're direct.
Or they.
I mean, yeah, it's rampant. So, all right, we shed a little light on this, and it's time to move on, friends. This is common. So get ready for this here. My son is away at college, sophomore year, not doing so well. He calls every day saying he wants to come home, quit school, maybe transfer. I don't know any therapists down there where he lives. What should I do to help? So many young people are struggling, and here parents trying to help, and they're not fully equipped and don't know what to do. What do you guys got? Not all at once.
Important. I'll run in here. The first thing is that we, as parents, we need to recognize that there are services on most, if not all, college campuses. At least I can say in the United States. Doug, you can pour in on this one. But in this country where we are, most universities have student centers, mental health clinics, or medical clinics where your son or daughter could reach out for support. Many universities have graduate programs where there are therapists who are being trained to do this work and will need to speak with undergraduates who are in need of support under the supervision of well-trained clinicians. So those programs exist as well. And if those two aren't sufficient, you can always check the National Psychological Association, not the State Association of the place in which your son or daughter's college is, and you can reach out to them for the names of providers that could be private in the list. But most important, when your son or daughter is having a hard time in college, instead of saying you'll be fine, you want to be there either through the virtual ability to pour in your attention, your love, and your guidance towards a university student center, and or invite him home so that you can give him a good weekend, care for him, and send him back with greater emotional fortitude. It's our job to hear when our kids are talking to us and to answer when they ask for help.
I'm going to jump in here. It's very hard to follow Dr. Norman, but I'm going to do my best and go in a different direction. Everything he said, I use those services. They got me through my parents' massive divorce during college. And I was actually just speaking today with a friend who said, how are you so independent? How did you figure out how to get yourself well when you were going through a difficult time? And I actually said, because my parents weren't there for me, which is like a whole other bag of tricks. But I'd also tell this parent, let them have their space, pray for them, send them good energy as well, and give them that chance to try to find the resources on their own by also providing a list of like who they could go to in real time. The second thing I'm going to say is, in addition to everything Norman said, it's also very important to take care of your soul and to see if you can find a spiritual way to deal with your issues. I always say on our calls every Wednesday that my two favorite forms of therapy are praying and also taking whatever challenges I'm going through and making something creative out of them, writing, drawing, painting, acting, singing, dancing. And, suggesting that could help. They may be like, I don't want to deal with you. That sounds impossible. One of the greatest assignments I had in college at the University of Florida when I transferred from NYU was that my recovering Catholic teacher had said to me, he's a wonderful guy, still a Catholic to this day. He said, go and check out every single church you can, every single synagogue. I went to Hare Krishna. I went all over just kind of like searching for meaning and spirituality. It was such a great way to build community and find out about wonderful things and talk about things that weren't just right here, but up here. So I would say encourage them to find a way to make community. And I think going back to just tying in our last question, for me, the biggest issue for addiction today is coming from a lack of emotional intimacy. And look at us right now. We're having this deep conversation through Zoom, which is wonderful, but nothing beats sitting in front of someone and putting out your hand, giving a hug, connecting with the eyes, feeling the pheromones in the air, even without even touching them, just being there, and taking off the mask, literally and figuratively. So that's what I would say.
I love that. And just to give a completely different perspective on it, look, a lot of us, even in jobs, let's face it, when the alarm goes off, we struggle to get out of bed, and then we drag ourselves into the office, we drag ourselves in front of the computer, and we stare and wondering what the bleep we're doing there all day. And yet, when we go on holiday, we might have only had 3 hours sleep, and yet we can spring out of bed, spring into an airplane, spring into the pool at the other end with loads of energy, right? So maybe that your son is having an issue which is quite good. Instead of a midlife crisis, he's having an early kind of awareness crisis that actually he's doing the wrong thing. So maybe he should write down 5 things he loves doing, 5 things he's good at doing, and 5 things he can add value to people in some way or form, and see if there's a match, and self-check that he's on the right path. Because sometimes we follow our parents and what our parents want us to do rather than what we want to do in here. And that's why if you can really self-check and make sure that he is on the right path, he might save himself a marriage breakdown and a midlife crisis like I had. So that's why I find out, make sure he knows what his purpose is, make sure he's on that path towards that purpose, rather than going down your own path, your parental path that you might think is your path for him, which it isn't. He needs to find his own way. So if he's finding his own way now, support him in getting there as quickly as possible.
Beautiful. Great.
So what I was going to say, and like what I would add to that is like what Dr. Norman had said about when it comes to like, finding a therapist down there, it's like Psychology Today is like readily available. And then you can actually filter the process, and you can actually go to your insurance company and go, hey, I need somebody to find somebody on my plan, and this is what I need them to specialize in. And then, so the one good thing to come out of this pandemic is the fact that like we're doing more telehealth and more teletherapy than ever, and which is amazing, because as much as like sometimes we're going to go, because I have a lot of students and college students that I have worked with in my practice, and they're actually loving the fact that they can have access to me while they're at school, but even when they come home for the summer, they can see me in person. And so like this has actually been the one good thing to come from the pandemic. The second thing is I would say is that it kind of bears more exploration, because there is a reason why he is wanting to come home, why he's begging to come home. There's something going on that he's not talking about, that he's not saying, and that as parents get to become curious, and they get to make the space to actually allow that child to have their feelings, to really like decide what's going to be best for them, and then to just hold the energy, hold the space for them. And that way they can get to know themselves. They learn how to build a frustration tolerance. They learn how to have emotional regulation. And it's like better late than never, because a lot of times I work with the parents who that they have no idea how to do this. And it's because that was never taught to them. So emotional regulation, to have a frustration tolerance, to go, this isn't working out the way that I thought, and I'm having feelings about it. How do I learn how to sit with that? How do I learn how to interface with my nervous system and calm my anxiety so that I can handle this on my own terms, in my own way? And that's part of adulting. And it's not an easy process, but a very necessary one. And you will never have a more worthwhile journey.
Well, these are all amazing perspectives and answers. I mean, incredible. And you know what? Just to dovetail off what you just said, Liz, look, there is no handbook in 2022 on how to be a parent. And what a lot of these young people are going through, I mean, they're not even adulting yet. They're trying to learn. So take all the crap that's been going on in the past 2.5 years and take someone that has an immature mind, or someone that's not fully formulated yet, and now dump that on top of it, right? And then you have parents that want to help and some parents that don't. Listen, we're going to be all right. If you keep tapping into the positive, if you keep looking for answers, if you keep your feet moving, you keep encouraging one another, we're going to be all right. And what we are is unfortunately out of time. So how about that? This thing goes like this. I mean, we go so fast here. So many perspectives. I want to thank all 4 of you rock stars for coming on in the name of mental wellness, being superheroes, to just take your time to step away from your practices, your businesses, your clients, to do this, to serve up whoever is going to be watching. Because I know somebody was just helped out there today. So for
Mark, did you say the disclaimer, by the way? And should
No,
we do
but
final
it'll
thoughts?
be in the comments. So,
Okay.
final thoughts, round robin, 30 seconds. Who has it? Doug, what do you got for everybody?
Oh, just, always make sure that you know exactly where you're going in life, putting goals in place. I had a near-death experience when I achieved all my goals, which were all ego-oriented goals, and then I had to reinstate some new goals. So make sure you have goals in life, direction in life, and make sure it comes from here rather than here, so that you bless rather than impress.
All right, Barb, what do you got for the squad?
I'm going to say it again. I think it's worth repeating that all addictions and any negativity and challenges in our life usually come from not reaching out and asking for help and finding intimacy with those around us that could really be there. There's always someone in your midst that was put there, I believe, by the divine to help us. And I also am just a big fan of raising your head up literally with your hands and saying, what can I learn from this? Instead of saying why. In Hebrew, the word is lama, which means for what. So for what purpose has this come to me? Help me, as opposed to why did this happen? Victim mentality. So.
All right. Dr. Norman, what do you got? Final thoughts for everybody.
I would dovetail what Barb has said by adding that connection is really the greatest form of healing. And so regardless of the questions that we answer, whether they have a biopsychosocial approach or a spiritual approach or an emotional one or business-oriented energy one, we need to maintain connection. And that in this life, it's hard to be alone. And if we can reach out to another and raise our sorrows from a private place to a more public abode, we will experience all of the benefits and find ourselves healing as we heal others.
Love it.
Beautiful.
Liz, take us home. Land this plane. What do you got?
I would say that connection is everything, and that everything begins and ends with you. So learn to know and love, trust yourself, and it's of utmost importance how you're speaking to yourself, because you are in here 24/7, 365. Make sure it is a nice place to live.
Oh, love it.
Good one.
Exclamation point. Bam. Plane landed. You have arrived at your destination. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, so have we. So for the mind, body, voice, soul, for Liz Childs, Dr. Norman Freed, Barb Heller, and the Doug Gordon, we say stay well, stay encouraged, take care of each other, and we will see you next time. Be great.